Okay, so I want to welcome you all to Happy Hours AI Talk. Excited to kind of bounce off some thoughts and ideas as we move forward in this type of new technology. For me, I've recently been dabbled in some of Adobe's new things. I've been watching some of the videos from it. It's all quite interesting. Adobe at one point kept reemphasizing they're not going to take any of our jobs, and sometimes I I get a little concerned about it based on what I see it can do. Um, but for the most part, I'm more interested in hearing where you guys think about the avenue AI is taking us. So I'll take a step back and let me ask you, have you used any of AI's technology? Is it working for you? And what do you think about it?
I can go first.
Sure, go ahead, Dawn.
I just wrote a blog. I just wrote a blog on AI because I have used it. I posted it to LinkedIn today. So basically my client, I work with a lot of nonprofits. My one client gets all these ideas. So I used Firefly because she wanted a lady in red holding a red drink, smoking for a red ball, like the drink smoking. So anyway, I went into Firefly and I searched for women. I found one, but I had to do a lot of changes because a lot of the fingers don't show up and the eyes are kind of weird. The dress was not appropriate. So it was really fun, but it's time, it's a lot of time. So I found the woman and then I took her in Photoshop and then I kept like making changes to the whole thing. So it turned out really good. She loved it. But I mean, you wouldn't be able to find that if you just tried to AI it.
Sure, sure. And I remember when I was watching some of Adobe seminars, they talked about you may have to go in and kind of tweak things a bit, like maybe fingers were missing or things like that. Um, I kind of realized that as they were talking us through and kind of showing us some things. Quick question for you that I've been wondering. What is the difference between Firefly and Adobe Express? Have you used both?
Yes, Adobe Express is more for like social media. Firefly will come up with an image that you can download. It'll give you different choices.
Okay. But I think Adobe Express was that the one that will create different layouts? Like you take an image in typography and it'll create a different, like five different types of like layouts for like social media. Do I have that
I
right?
have not explored that yet.
Okay. How about you, Faith? Have you dabbled in it at all?
I have not.
Okay.
Um, I'm a writer.
Okay.
Um, one of the reasons I have not is business has been so slow, I haven't needed to. Um, some people I've talked to I did go to a seminar last week that Elise Bannon gave. I don't
Hmm.
know if you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
That was really good. And she talked about how you can use it for research. I
Well,
thought it was just to write a
that's
copy.
interesting you
But
said that because I signed up for Elisa's course, and while I'm very
Me
behind,
too.
well, I'm very behind in it.
Me
Um,
too.
I decided to kind of like just try it out. And I have to admit that when I first started it, I was hesitant. I
the
mean,
course or AI?
for the AI overall. I approached AI, I started dabbling in it, I started using it for some of my blogs. I always felt that anything I put in, which was content I had first written, and then I kind of put it in AI so to see what they would spit out. And for me, I always had to tweak it. So I was like, I figured I wasn't using it completely properly, but it was kind of getting my feet wet. And then when I started walking through some of the workshops that Elise, I'm actually only on the second one. I'm finishing up the second one, Don. But when
I
I
think I'm
started,
on the third.
okay. Not too far behind then. So I started using it, and it really became all about the types of prompts that you put in. And if you have the right prompt, it spits out a lot better content than if you don't hone in on the way you phrase things. Would that sound about accurate?
Yeah, I use AI to write all my blogs. I
I do,
mean, I kind of write them myself and then put it in and they make it better because I'm not a writer
yeah.
or,
Do you tweak it at all?
yeah, a little bit. And
Yeah,
I have used AI to write descriptions for my products that I sell online or
interesting.
come up with a name for a product like,
I
sea
like that.
creature. So it's been very helpful.
But as I use it, and this kind of comes back to you, Faith, as I use it, and as a designer, I write content, but I'm not a writer. And I often wonder, the better that AI gets, how concerned are writers about, the content it's putting out? I mean, how do you see your role moving forward?
Writers are concerned.
Yeah. I found it funny, and I mentioned this in the very beginning when I was watching a lot of the Adobe conference seminars. Adobe kept assuring us you're not gonna lose your job, you're not gonna take your job. But when I see Adobe Express, this is my personal opinion, when I see Adobe Express take one graphic and text and change it into five different social media contents, it concerns me because it's smart enough to really pop out decent kind of content that somebody would hire me to do, you know? So so the question becomes, and I've wondered this, is will graphic designers become more management of AI than designers of AI? You won't replace a designer. I just want to preface that. There's still going to be a need for a designer, but I think designers are going to become more management of AI. And that could be the same with writers. What say you?
Well, one thing that I don't know would affect designers, but you have to fact check
Yeah,
everything because what they give you is not always true.
right.
So that's one of the biggest problems I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I
You
think
can
that
see like
circles,
an article on bushes, but it'll say, oh, the bushes grow 20 all year round and they give off fruit. Well, it might not be true.
right,
Or I've heard people that had them write their resume and they put in schools and jobs they never had.
right.
So it has to be carefully monitored. And I think you get to the point, well, is it taking more time to monitor it than to just write it yourself?
That's a good point. And it comes back to maybe there's going to be more of a management side of the AI. I mean, that's the thing in my head I keep coming back to. And it's still a question of, what is that role going to be moving forward for writers, designers, and other content providers, so to speak.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, look at Canva. I lost a lot of clients because they're doing their stuff in Canva, which looks like crap, by the way. But they're doing it and they're using it, and
And that's a good example because I complement that from AI. The same thing that you're saying, Canva, people are joining Canva, non-designers are joining Canva to do the graphic stuff. So it's almost the same thing. When AI takes over some of the creative end, it's spitting out content that is graphically appealing. You know what I mean? So in Canva, you have um, non-designers using it, but the problem is
right.
in many cases they can't design. They don't have the basics of good design. But AI can. And so that's where the difference is. Will companies buy the Adobe Suite just to have access to someone who can create good content and not pay a designer, or pay a designer but, pay them less? You know,
Well, one of my clients did a whole annual report in Canva, and then they hired like I don't see AI designing an annual report with the copy and the graphics and all
I
that
would agree
stuff,
with
but
that. Mm.
their report was awful. And they hired me to do it in InDesign. And I did a beautiful piece, and they're like, "Oh, we wanted to kind of go back to this." I'm like, "Whatever, it's not going in my portfolio."
Right.
And they're paying me good money for it, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that's a concern too. So when they use these tools and it's not great content, and you're either helping them through a project or you're working on a project, but it's not content that you can use to kind of promote your own self, that's challenging too.
And they send it to the printer, and they don't know how to do bleed or any of this other stuff. So the printers are frustrated because, I have a lot of printer friends. They refer me to clients and stuff, but they don't know what resolution is. They don't know what bleed marks are or crop marks. So it's a whole problem,
Do
really.
you think that might be able to be improved with AI technology? That one doesn't concern me as much.
I would imagine. I mean, make it print ready. You need to know the certain prompts, so also to get what you need, the right image
Right. Right. Yeah.
or product,
Right.
finished product.
Well, when I was walking through the worksheet that I was doing through Elise, um, I noticed that when I got to the part, and Faith, you may not be as familiar with it, but she was walking us through a whole workshop where you um, kind of write down a little bit about yourself, your values, and you put it through the prompts of AI and various AI tools, and it'll
Hmm.
spit out a bunch of content, and you pick and choose or you can tweak it. And as you go through the workshop, it asks you to develop, give it enough information based on what you've already done, like it's building blocks, and you put in the prompt like, give me 5 pitches or something. And I'm sure, Don, you've done this one by now, but I was amazed at how well written I thought that stuff was and how I can actually use it. I mean, it simplified a larger paragraph into something much smaller. So for me, I think that was one of the starting points of the wow factor for me because I always thought you had to tweak a lot. And short, simple things, it seems to be very concise. Have you had that experience, Faith, with writing content that you've put out?
With AI,
Yeah.
I haven't used AI.
Oh, you
I
haven't
haven't
used
used
it.
it.
Oh, okay, right. You said that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't had any business to use it for. So
It, it's
one of
becoming,
those years.
yeah, it's becoming much more receptive for me than it was before. Um, and and then when you
What
look
do you
at,
mean? What do you mean receptive? It's been more. What do you?
for me, it's been more receptive because I was resistant. When I first started writing my blogs, I'd write my content, put it in, and then it would spit out a revised article, but I always had to go in and tweak it. And I'm finding that if you use the right prompts for AI and you put in the content in relation to a good prompt, it kind of spits out more concise um, messaging than what I was doing for my blogs. So that was kind of more of a wow factor for me that, maybe this is something that I can be a little bit more receptive with the right kinds of prompts and tools, so to speak, that I can use. And so, if anybody were to watch this video earlier or later, I should say, some of the AI tools that we've been using through Elisa's group is Copilot, GBT Tat, Perplexity. Any others that I'm missing, Don?
Um, Chat GBT.
Yeah, yeah. And there were a couple others. I'm trying to
I
think.
like Perplexity and I like Chat GBT.
Yeah, those are the two I'm using. Um,
Isn't
and
there Clara or something
There are
like
some,
that?
there's a lot that are paid. The ones we mentioned are pretty much free. Um, and you get different things when you put in, I mean, they're all different AI tools, so you'll get different content. I noticed with Copilot that it's not as um it doesn't put out as much as GPT chat and Perplexity. I think it puts out smaller content, and I don't tend to use that one as much. I defer more to the other two. So
I will say if she didn't get to it and where in the lectures you're listening to, she did say don't get into a subscription where you have to pay $20 a
yeah,
month. She
yeah, and I
feels it's not
haven't. I haven't.
I haven't
necessary.
done that either. I mean, how much money can you spend on all this stuff? You know
Right,
what I
right,
mean?
exactly. Although my understanding, based on what other people have said, if you invest in some of the ones that she talked about, you might get better content. That's that through the subscription, it kind of delivers better content. But I'm pretty amazed and happy with what I'm getting for the free version. So for me, I'm just gonna continue down that path.
Well, that was her advice the other night was it's not necessary. You can get just as good with what's free.
Right. How far along are you?
That's up too, huh?
How far along are you in? Are you subscribed to the course that she was putting out? Or are
Yeah,
you?
this was the one off where she was speaking to what group was it? There's a group called Spark, which is
Okay.
a group of design firm owners,
Okay.
which I'm happy to tell you all about. And she was speaking to that group. It was like a lecture that you signed up for.
Okay.
So I would suspect that the content is the same
Yeah, I would think so.
that what she's giving you, but this was a one-off lecture.
Right. Exactly. Um, how
But
about
I'll write in the chat this group because you might be interested in investigating it.
sure, go ahead.
Which oh, here, everyone. I'm sorry.
So, Dawn, curious, you mentioned that you're using it for product descriptions. Um,
Hmm.
I actually, when I started Elise's course, I started it because I also want to open up my own art shop. I'm working on kind of content for it right now this year. So that was one of the reasons I really started because I figured that would be a good fit for what I want to do. So when I was walking through these workshops, I literally am doing it twofold. I'm doing it for my business, but I'm also doing it for the art shop that I'd like to open. And because I'm doing it on two different avenues, the content I'm getting are for not only my art shop and my business, but they're two different models, so to speak. So I'm hoping that as the year ends and I continue working through these prompts and worksheets that she has, I can kind of hit the ground running next year with some kind of plans of action that I'm developing from all this content. So how are you using it for the content and the art shop that you have? Because you said it comes
Well,
with
I
different
will say,
products.
can you write a description for my golf cards in a light tone or, like a small description for my shop? And some of them are long, and I'm like, you need to make it shorter,
Yeah.
but or Chat GBT I like because it keeps all your stuff like that you ever asked, like on the left hand side. So
Hmm.
you can go back and look and see what you asked. I also asked for a name for my calendar last year, which was sea creature stuff. And I forget what I named it, but they gave me choices and I'm like, that works for me.
Right. Right. Well, sounds good. Well, welcome some of you that have joined us. We are talking about AI and we are talking about how we're using it in our businesses or in some of the side hustles that we have. If you're able to join us and turn on your video, great. But that's kind of where we started the discussion. A lot of our discussion so far has been on using AI for writing content. We did talk a little bit about Adobe's new tools, which I don't know if you had seen any of the Adobe conference at all, but there were a couple things where the AI was putting graphics like around a circle. So
Oh, I did
before,
see that.
so when before you had to kind of creatively figure out how to solve that, it's with a push of a button now, and those things are really really neat. So I'm amazed, um, and also looking forward to using some of that. I have not dabbled in it; I've just have seen it. So makes
I
sense.
have not upgraded my programs yet
I haven't
because
either.
every time I do on the Macs, like sometimes they stop working. So I mean, um, I I still have the old InDesign because when I upgraded it, like all my stuff was freezing and I use it all the time. So
Yeah, I usually wait a little while to make sure all some of the kinks are out. That's just what I do because I get a little concerned about that, especially if I'm working on a project and something's not flowing right.
yeah,
So,
or it crashes in the middle.
yeah. Hi, Shakira. Welcome.
Hi.
We're
I
talking, go ahead. We're talking a little bit about
I
AI.
hear you guys talking about Adobe. I've only used ChatGPT at this point um to kind of edit because I'm bad at that. And I like to write, I like to storytell, but editing or to give me engaging captions or keywords and hashtags. Um Usually that's what I use ChatGPT for. I use them for cover letters. Shh, don't tell anyone. Um, because I'm terrible at talking about myself, and I'm not convinced that people even read cover letters anymore. So why they ask for them is beyond me, but um, yeah, it is, right? It's so good.
I've used it for cover letters and things like that as well.
Yeah, so things that I have trouble with content wise, it's really great for. But my friend, she created a bot from OpenAI, like another version of herself, and I was like, okay, so you don't even want to be my friend no more. Like I'm just gonna be talking to this AI ChatGPT bot, like I am offended.
Right, right, right.
But it could be it's very intimidating to me. It
Yeah,
could be used it's a very great tool to kind of um use it as a measuring stick, but people are using it for the most outlandish things to me.
interesting. Have you used any other AI tools or is that the only one?
That's the only one I've heard of Adobe, the ones that you guys were mentioning. But I'm not really deep in design. I'm when it comes to design, graphics and stuff, I'm a Canva girl. So I'm waiting on the Canva Chat GPT Open AI merge that's said to happen.
So tell us a
So that
little bit about that. I've heard some of that, but I'm not as versed. I use Canva, but tell us a
yeah.
little bit more about that.
Okay, so how do I put this? It's basically going to be AI for graphics, and
Mhm.
it's going to basically brand your colors, your palette, your format, and give you like a template, to my understanding, a template for your deck or your website or whatever it is you're building in Canva.
Interesting. Okay.
I need that because I'm challenged. I'm graphically challenged.
And it's funny, you missed the conversation where we started earlier, where we were a little concerned about how much of that is gonna replace some of the design designers do and be more of a management tool for designers. So people like yourself are gonna turn to Canva for, it spitting out at least decent creative content, where normally somebody like yourself might hire a designer or might turn to a designer for that kind of stuff. So it's interesting and curious and scary all at the same time for some of us as creatives. Um, I mean, I don't do video, but with AI, I could, and I haven't dabbled in that, but I could. So it
Yeah.
crosses all the creative forms of no matter what field you're in, it's kind of making creating different types of content accessible to anybody.
But I just feel there's something about the human spirit that I don't think AI will be able to duplicate, or at least I hope not.
That's a good
Um,
point.
because there's a human essence that even if I input something, there's a human aspect that I have to add or tailor it to what my intention is. And so I'm like, I'm not sure that the human essence is ever going to get captured within that. I hope not, because then that's like a whole nother revolution happening. But
I agree.
let's not go there. Let's
But would
not go.
you
I will not.
would you pay a graphic designer when you can do the same things in Canva? Just throwing that out.
It depends on the job, and it depends on the budget, and it depends on um it really just all depends, you know. I hate that AI is kind of replacing the relationship aspect between humans. Like that's my business in terms of media, communications, branding. Um, that's kind of, but what now with people not needing each other, it's kind of sad.
Right. Right. The other thing that I want to bring up, because Adobe had mentioned it a lot, was the uniqueness of promoting individualism, like creativity. Like Adobe was more or less saying with all these new tools in AI, creatives can be more creative in their own right, their own style, their own diverse creative ability that they can express themselves differently or uniquely, I should say. Um, and coupled with that, I noticed, and I was reading an article that Google is now switching their algorithms to be um, more receptive to individualism. And what I mean by that, the whole point of that was you're going to have so much AI content, and some of that content may sound very similar, that they are going to lean in a little bit heavier in, well, or changing their algorithms where people who create their own content and use their own experiences or um, project challenges to kind of input in a blog or something, they're going to pull some of that to make just AI content in general a little bit more interesting. So it's going to pull that uniqueness of what everybody does as an individual and their experiences. It's going to change the algorithm so that that component of what we do as experienced creatives comes into play with some of the AI content stuff. Has anybody kind of heard of that change coming down the pipe? So it seems like there's a lot of leaning heavily into individualism for creatives too. So it seems like they're trying to be all inclusive, Adobe and Google, to kind of include content as being more substantial and not just sounding similar across the board. Does that make sense? So adding your own spin of what you create and how you created it and discussing it is going to be something that's going to be more value to like Google. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Sorry I'm late. I had a call that ran late, but this topic is important to me, so I want to make sure I joined.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been talking a lot about AI. If you don't mind, can I ask you what your thoughts are on it? I know you've been using it. And
Yeah, Lydia, I see that your husband's a copywriter. I'm also a copywriter. Um, and yeah, I do use it. I specifically have been using and studying ChatGPT a lot. I'm actually giving a CR60 on it next month,
oh,
November
good.
19th.
Cool.
And how to like have your own voice when it comes to marketing while using AI as a tool, but not necessarily as the end all be all. Because, like you said, I found a lot of different softwares are now and programs are now incorporating these, they're championing individualism just to make sure that everyone sounds different and they all have their own voice. Otherwise, you're going to sound the same as everybody else. I have an interesting story that I just heard this week. A client of mine, she's in a PR agency. She um, actually got fired by a big client of theirs because now there's a lot of different detectors. There's these AI detectors that if you copy and paste images or words into this detector, it can actually tell you what percentage of the copy or graphics have been AI created.
Wow. Wow. That's
So people like
Wow.
now, like clients are even against it, which is good for us, which is good for us creatives, because like we obviously, you know, we value our individualism and our creativity, and that's what our business is. So
no,
it's
that's
just an interesting tidbit that I learned this week.
and I'm sure that that's going to surface more frequently too.
For sure, yeah.
And I
But yeah,
know,
I use it as a tool more than anything else. Just like I don't use it for my all my copy. I use it as like a brainstorming tool more than anything.
yeah,
To go back to your original question.
started out that way. And it's also interesting. I remember last year when we did a talk a little bit on trademark, that the trademark attorney at that time was saying they're still all trying to figure this out. What's going to be copyrightable and what's not. By the way, on a side note, Adobe says that they ask for permission to use any of your content, and I tried to investigate that a little bit because I don't remember like either signing up for it or unsubscribing for it. And basically, you have to go to, I think it's your accounts, Adobe. Um, I can look up the actual link for you, but you have to opt out. So if you're using content in some of your software and you have that checked in, then AI is using some of your content to use it as training. So
Mhm.
that's mostly in the Creative Suite that I'm talking about. So let me see if I can find that for you.
I'll
But
be going in there right now and unchecking that box.
yeah, do you have the link there, Don?
No, I'm trying to look for it.
Okay. All right. I can look for it in general, but if you wanted to opt out, you want to make sure that that button is checked off so they don't use any of the content that you create as a training module. Um, so so that's pretty much pretty interesting. And I think in the group too, I remember in some of the Slack conversations, I think it was Sarah. She mentioned that on Beyonce, she ended up getting some work from it by submitting some of her work to Beyonce, which is kind of neat. So, Don,
Oh, wow.
did you find it?
I found the link. You go in data and privacy settings,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's it.
it just you turn off what it says. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
great they have it as an option because that's been a huge backlash of AI. The fact that they're using people's words for training and yeah, there were
I
a lot of
don't
cases on it.
Yeah, I don't
Forget.
remember seeing anything like when I used something, whether it asked me. I think I saw something when it was first coming out, and I went in and I opted out of it. For me, I opted out because I didn't understand at all. And so if you don't have that checked in or you updated something, it may still be on. But just to make everyone aware that if you did want to opt out, that button has to be selected or deselected.
What button is this? You said settings and privacy?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have the whole
You
link?
go under your profile and you look for settings. It's under there.
Okay.
Thank you, Dawn. So in general, Nicole, you're presenting next month. Do you want to just give us a quick intro into what you're doing to let everyone know since we're talking about AI and if they'd like to join you?
Yeah, sure. It's on November 19th. I was hesitant to do it at first. Nancy asked me to do it because I've been talking a lot about AI and marketing on LinkedIn. And the reason why I was hesitant is because it changes every day and it's evolving all the time. And I'm no expert in it, but I have been playing with it and working in it since like for the last year, I guess, just to figure out from a marketing and copywriting perspective how to use this tool that's obviously going to be a part of our lives now, and embrace it and not be scared of it, but to also use it in my marketing and copywriting. Because I come from a copywriting perspective. So like graphic designers, I don't know the imagery part of that, and we can make it an open conversation too next month. But it's really about just figuring out your individualism and how to make sure that shines through while still using tools like ChatGPT. So you're embracing it, but you're not necessarily using your end all be all for all of your marketing purposes. So it's like finding that your voice despite all of those things.
Does it,
So yeah,
so it
it's going to be interesting.
so it doesn't worry you as a writer?
Oh, it totally worried me in the beginning. I'm not going to lie, but then when you start using it, just like anything else, you kind of just get used to it and you realize, I don't know, it doesn't worry me because like we've been talking about, there is no individualism at all. If you give it a certain prompt and the same person is asking it the same prompt, if we're all prompting it to do the same thing in the same way, it's going to spit back the exact same thing to us in the same tone, the same voice, the same personality. And we are all very different, unique personalities. And the goal is how do you use this tool, but also make sure that your personality and your voice is still infused in it. And that's whether you're writing, making content for yourself, if you're writing your own newsletter, your own blogs, social posts, or if you're doing it for somebody else like I am. So yeah, so I'm not afraid of it anymore. No,
Interesting.
because I think this is going to continue to be the individualism part that we're talking about is a key thing that separates human from AI.
Right. Right.
Well, even in design, if you go in and play with it, I played with it to like do a logo and stuff, and it's like I wasted so much time. I'm like, I could have done a logo like, it's not generating what you need or what you can use. So it's kind of like it might give you some ideas, but you're not going to use it.
Yeah, one of like the points that I'm making next month is I've tried to write full copy with it. I just wanted to see what it comes out to be. And just like you're saying, Dawn, as a graphic designer, as a copywriter, I just want to take it and tear it apart. I don't like anything that it comes up with because that's my specialty. And for graphic designers, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like I just wasted so much time fiddling with this thing that wasn't up to my standards that AI came up with. I could have just done it myself and I could have done it much faster. And that's our that's like a big reason why someone should want to work with us versus just try to do it on their own. Like
But
you
we're
might as well work
also
with a
we're,
professional.
we're also in the very early stages of it. So,
I know that's the other thing.
yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm like, how good is this going to get? That I have to be more concerned. Like, uh, I was mentioning before, Nicole, about how Adobe can take graphics and text and just pop out, like I think it's Adobe Express will pop out 5 different social media content and all the layouts look pretty damn good. I mean, I
Mm.
was amazed. So, I'm a little concerned about that, but we'll have to work with it and see what comes of all of it. Um, but I'm like you. I'm holding my breath a little bit. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that we may become more managers of AI. Still content providers, but maybe on more of the management side too.
I totally agree with that. I think because I mean this is a beast and it only just came
Gonna
out,
say it was a
right?
B.
Actually, it just can't come out. It's just become very popular this year with ChatGPT coming out. I feel like that really started the whole revolution. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that one day a lot of different industries, not just ours. My dad's a tax accountant, and even he was like, I could see my job just getting like AI is going to eventually just do your accounting for you. Your tax season is not going to be my job anymore. And I think we're all just going to become managers, like you said, of AI, and we're going to all have to adapt and just that's why it's so important to embrace it, right? And
Yeah.
Well,
it's
listen, they have the cars now that drive themselves. They have, I mean, it's not going to just be us, it's going to be everybody. So
Yep.
there's going to have to be some kind of like give and take because everybody's going to be losing a job. There's going to be robots that can take your order at McDonald's.
Yeah.
They don't even take I for the last what 8 years I've been ordering groceries, and I went to the supermarket for the first time, and all of, let's say, humans, for lack of a better term, are just scanning the items. The money goes in like a vending machine and comes out like a vending machine. It's pretty nuts, but I don't think that I would trust a bot with my life in a car. I
Me
don't,
neither.
yeah, I don't know about that one.
I feel you on that.
So let
Yeah.
me open it up. Does anybody have any specific questions that you'd like to address or ask that is specifically related to AI? And we haven't really touched on it yet. Anyone?
What jobs won't AI touch? That's my question. That's a big one for me. I know it's huge.
I've often thought about that. Anyone have any ideas? I feel like it's going to touch every facet of every kind of creation job in some way or shape or form.
Your human brain,
Yeah.
your
Hello.
specialized creativity.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. The human essence, I don't feel like it could replace that. Yeah.
So that brings up the question is, as given that we're all being forced to kind of hone in on a little bit more individualism, would you see us all working as separate entities and not so much with companies or teams? And AI is going to be more of a leaning into individualism, and companies will choose individual designers or writers to kind of support their marketing team based on how they carry their individual perspective and style for work. I mean, not everybody
I,
realizes all the talent out there, but if there's a way that AI can combine it and either companies can pick and choose a team and it's within the kind of style or content writing they want, would that open up a whole new avenue of how we work?
I think it's going to be very limiting. You said it. It's about the talent, and I think that it's going to boil down to relationships. And because we're so limited, even though we're a button away, we're all relying on social media, and that's so much information and so many people, so many quote unquote chat rooms. Let's go back to AOL for a second. So many chat rooms happening that I think it's going to boil down to relationships, favoritism, and nepotism, which I hope isn't true, but um, that's really where I see it's going to be limited to only what we can see in front of us and not what it's going to limit us from exploring and seeing other talent and other things outside of our culture that really leads us to that individualism. Because, when me personally, I didn't really recognize who I was and what made me an individual until I started traveling and going to different places and seeing different things and eating different foods. But now that, we have AI, it's going to kind of limit our palate. So that may be a little pessimistic, but that's my take.
Anyone else?
Well, I'm kind of at the pessimistic point of view in that because clients have to pay us to do stuff, if there's another way for them to do it themselves and they don't have to pay, I'm thinking they might gravitate towards that. Because a lot of what I do besides copywriting, I do name development and I do brand strategy. And I run into a lot of scenarios where they say, I already have a strategy. I don't need you. And why do I need you to come up with a name? I can do it myself. I name my child. I name my pet.
You don't want that client then.
Yeah.
But no, my point is maybe they're going to go away.
Right.
And it's going to be harder for us to find a paying client, and we're going to become more competitive with each other because there's just going to be less work around or less work that people are willing to pay for.
Yeah, I think that I've also had that fear as well. I think that to Janine's point earlier, the fact that you're a strategist, I think will set you apart because sure, someone can ask ChatGPT to come up with names for them, but do they know what the right name is? Does your client know which one is the right one and why, which one will absolutely not work and why. And I think that that's where you could probably, and that's where I'm thinking of, I'm even adding value just as a copywriter too, because I've been asked the same question before. I don't know if you've actually been asked this before, but someone has asked me like, why you, when I can just ask ChatGPT for $20 a month, and that's my answer. But yeah, maybe that client isn't for you then either. So yeah, but I think again the human element of being a strategist, because I think we're all strategists. We all know how to what goes into creating something. We can create something, but we also know the why to that, and the how and the what, who it's going to land with and why part. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you're raising a really good point is that a lot of what we do with what our output is sell it to the client, and ChatGPT is just spitting out a manuscript, but we can talk about this is good because, or this solves your problem because.
Yep. Yeah. That's how I'm trying to look at it.
I can
Yeah,
certainly
Shapiro was
see
saying with the human element and the human connection.
I can certainly see companies or small businesses or medium-sized businesses using AI to say, I need a creative, whether it's writer, video, designer, who has a background in, brand strategy, has worked in the sports arena, who works well with others, who has been in the field for 10 years and on, and it spits out a whole bunch of people that they can directly contact who would fit that model for who they'd want to hire. I can easily see that.
Well, that's what Elise was talking about at the seminar I went to. She went through a lot of that, where you can find people, although it's hard to find the linking with LinkedIn is not working, but it was giving you people.
Yeah. And we're doing that through that workshop that she's supporting. We're doing that through finding potential clients. But on the reverse end, they can use it to find creatives for specific projects like I was talking about earlier. So it's going to be to
Yeah.
some extent that individualism and how we're all promoting ourselves regularly via social media, via the content we put out. So we start ranking in Google to kind of show up in certain AI avenues based on what someone's searching. And as independent business owners, because we're already doing it and we have been doing it for years, maybe we, in some hindsight, have got the jump start on it. You know, for any new
Can I,
businesses starting out, they may not have that track record of promoting their businesses in a certain way that promotes that individualism as what is out there currently on the web. Go ahead, Dawn.
I just think, I'm just embracing it. I have been in business for I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I can't tell you how many times I had to reinvent myself. So as long as you're staying on top of things and incorporating it in your work and not like poo-pooing it, I think it's going to be fine. I always look at the glass half full.
Well, we have no choice to embrace it. It's here. And we just got to jump in and start using it because if you don't, in some ways you're going to be left behind. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, it gets back to what we had said earlier with accuracy,
Yeah.
and then it still can put forth false statements that have to be checked.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because I don't know about other different AI tools, but again, I'm more into ChatGPT. They the latest they pulled data from is actually 2023. So they're a year behind. So if any new information has come out in 2024, which usually it has, if there's a study that you're incorporating into your marketing or just new information generally, they don't have that in their database. They're not pulling that. It's just from 2023 and everything else in the past. So that's a good selling point too, in terms of fact checking,
Right.
because your clients are going to want the latest information.
Sure. Have you all thought that AI has moved at a rapid pace since last year? Have you seen changes where you're much more surprised it's moved as fast as it has? Yeah.
I think I expected it to move the way it did.
Anyone else?
Well, the whole world's moving. You buy a phone and then it's out of date 20 minutes later, and you get this and it's that.
Right. Right.
You buy a car and you can't use it because you can't figure out which button to defroster. Just
You
And
make
my
a good
doctor,
point.
my doctor was kidding with me, and he was saying, because I'm in the process of dating, and he was like, the next pickup line is gonna be, like I'm 15% bionic, like, I'm almost perfect or whatever the case. You'll be able to order your wedding date on Amazon and it arrives the next day, no assembly required. That's like a stretch, but yeah.
Interesting. That's a good perspective. Well, let me ask you this. How interesting is this AI topic to you that we should keep it on the dock for kind of revisiting it next year? Would
I
it,
think we should. And can I just say that, how many people that you're going to be dating are generating their image with AI tools?
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
oh man, oh man,
That's terrifying.
forget it. I'm already getting text messages generated from AI. I already know it because they're having punctuation humans don't ever use. So I'm
You're
like,
going to
how dumb are you? How
you're going to
dumb
show
can you
up. They're going to be like 4'8". They're going to be,
be?
That's
you
so
know,
funny.
Dawn,
But
that's
I am so
interesting.
interested to see where AI is going to be in the next year. Hopefully, we'll have better dating apps, better matching with people being honest if they're willing to, but we'll see.
You know, the other thing I did want to inject too is, again, going back to some of the Adobe stuff I had seen, being that you can change just about anything in Photoshop to take out people, to add people, to take out lines and wires, how much of a photo is going to be authentic? There's something about an original, authentic photograph that someone just took, via camera. So how much of that content now is going to be believable? It's you'll always be questioning whether something is really truly authentic. And as time goes in, that may not be. So honing in back to the individualism of authenticity for ourselves as individuals will be a selling tool for moving forward.
Yeah, and also I know of a lot of I don't know if you guys are on TikTok, but I see a lot of celebrity prank calls and a lot of that happening. So a lot of times in court too is the law is going to be affected. That's where my worry is too, because if somebody is presenting a recording or presenting something in writing, it's usually deemed as valid. But now with AI being able to generate all of these, celebrity voices and pranks and things like that, anyone could fabricate anything. I wonder you know, how the law is going to anticipate the validity of whatever evidence is being considered.
Very good point on that. I think it goes back to what Nicole was saying. Hopefully, there's tools that can counteract to identify what is real and what is not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know Michelle Berdinas, the I call her the our friendly lawyer in the group. I don't know if you guys all know her, but she's great. She gave a talk on this earlier this year, I think.
Right.
And she even said like it's laws take years to get into effect, and she's nervous that by the time by the time the law comes out that they're going to be like ChatGPT and AI is going to be evolved into a whole different beast than it is today. So how
Exactly.
long, yeah, like how long is it going to take to have any kind of legal guidelines as to how to use it? And it's just a free for all right now. So like, who even knows? But it's a really interesting question.
Well, I will
I
heed
don't
all your advice and I will keep this on the dock for next year's happy hour topic. And we'll continue to talk on the AI and all the new things that come up next year, and also how we're all using it. Because as like the web was introduced a long time ago, we all have to kind of learn from each other and kind of see how we're using it, see what's working, pros and cons, and really kind of dive in all together and share that content to learn and grow and help promote ourselves. So, well, it's at the top of the hour, so I want to thank you all for joining me. I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you again.
thank you.
Likewise, nice to meet
Yeah.
everybody virtually anyway.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.